On this week's Eastern Conference edition of Locked On NHL, we're coming off of a frozen frenzy where every single team was in action. We'll give our biggest takeaways from that. Plus, a Stanley Cup champion head coach has signed a contract extension. That's all coming up on today's Locked On NHL.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It's another edition of Locked On NHL, your team every day. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we have local experts on the biggest stories. Thank you for making us your first listen on this Wednesday, October 23rd. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. That's comedy, theater, sports. You need tickets. You need Game Time. I'm Ross Levitan. You can find me over at Locked On Ottawa Senators alongside Mike DiStefano from Locked On Toronto Maple Leafs. It is the Battle of Ontario edition each and every Wednesday here on the show. But last night, it was a battle of keeping up with 16 games, all staggered by 15 minutes. Mikey, was this a good, great, or fantastic idea?
Fantastic idea. We've been asking for staggered starts is great. I mean, for a couple of reasons. One, you get hockey. It was like 8 hours of hockey basically throughout the night, 6-7 hours, whatever it was. Like, I don't think that Golden Knights game ended until like 1:30 in the morning. Like, you could watch hockey all night long. But I thought it was great because during intermission or during a commercial, you could flip back and forth, watch a couple different games. Right when one's over, you catch the last 10 minutes of the next, and so on and so forth. And then you just get a chance to watch every team in the league. It's awesome. It's great. I think the NHL doing this, specialty frozen frenzy and doing this once every year. Maybe they could do it a couple times a year. I do appreciate the efforts by the league to do something like this. Little innovation.
And as Canadians, we unfortunately didn't get that red zone style broadcast that they were putting on down in the States. Hopefully that can make its way north sooner rather than later. How'd your team do last night, Mikey?
I don't recall. I do not recall.
They were coming off a huge win, too. One of only two teams playing back-to-backs. The Monday game, Toronto put a beat down on the Tampa Bay Lightning, but we were joking about it before the show, and not even as a chirp, but the Leafs play down to their competition more than any other team in the league. I think when they're favored minus 200 or more, they've got more losses than anybody else. They fall last night to the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, it was a difficult game to watch, man. Let me tell you, if I didn't cover the team for a living and had to literally talk about it on Locked On Leafs, I would have turned that thing off in the first period. Like I'm sure most Leaf fans did. Just this is done. They just, I don't know, they were not prepared. We're not ready for that game. I don't think it's, you don't have to overreact to it. It's the first bad game of the Berube era. But what I will say is I think, some of the bad habits that were around for the Maple Leafs kind of crept back into last night's game. It's got a little bit of Leafs Nation concerned. There was a lot of talk going into it things are different. They played great against Tampa Bay the night before, beat them to a pulp, and, their best effort in a long time. And then the very next night, lay an absolute egg and get trounced. It was 5-0 halfway through the game, ended 6-2. Not a good game by the Maple Leafs at all, but it's one game. It's one game, Ross. It's not over. The season's not done, but I think Leaf fans can pump the brakes on planning the parade after seeing last night's festivities.
Well, third string goalie in net too. No disrespect to Dennis Hildeby, who I know that organization is very high on in the future, but Anthony Stolarz, he's been fantastic this season.
Yeah, he's been great, but that's a whole other story because it wasn't even supposed to be Hildeby in net last night. It was supposed to be Joseph Woll, and once again, he wasn't ready to go, and they decided, all right, we'll kick the can down, should play in a week. I know it's a similar situation to your boy out in Ottawa with Linus Ullmark. Both guys afraid to put their equipment on, apparently, but it worked out well for Forsberg out in Ottawa. That guy was unbelievable last night. Was the final there? Was it 4-0? Was that the final?
4-0. Yeah, 31 save shutout for Anton Forsberg, and Ottawa only had 22 shots. It was almost justice, the fact that Ottawa got to face a team with a bad goaltender that night. They put up 4 goals on 9 shots against Connor Ingram in the first period and then just cradled the game home. The shots were 8-1 10 minutes in for Utah. Hey, say what you want about the final score last night. Utah is a fast hockey team, and they
Good club.
bring it on home ice. It's exciting to see them kind of get some momentum at the start of the season. Must suck for Arizona fans watching those young prospects that they kind of grew in their organization really take a step forward. The Dylan Genthers, Logan Cooley's, Clayton Keller, of course, was great in Arizona, but he's at a whole nother level with the C slapped on his chest now this season. But yeah, Ottawa had a great game last night with that 4-0 result. And it is a big question mark, though, in goal with Linus Ullmark. Signs that extension, plays 2 games, looks phenomenal in the first, beating the Florida Panthers. He's the main reason why they got that win, and then fell in Montreal, suffered a sprain of some sort. And what's really kind of awkward, curious, confusing about this is they sent down Mads Søgaard before going on this road trip where they're in Utah, Vegas, and Colorado. Tough trip. So when you're bringing only Forsberg and Ullmark on the trip, the expectation is that those are going to be your 2 guys. Then the morning of the game, they recall another goalie from the minors, and Forsberg gets the start.
Yeah, goaltending's been a real issue around the league this year. And, you look at a couple like Tristan Jarry was healthy scratch the other day. That guy
Billy
got
Husso on waivers. He's down
Billy
the minors.
Husso, put on waivers. Vasilevsky got yanked.
9 goals in Ontario, fella. We can meet in the middle on that one.
Absolutely. And it's like, where's the Vasilevsky of old? Like, what's going on with this guy? Like, there's a lot of goalies around the league that aren't looking too hot. Bobrovsky gave up a 5 spot last night. He didn't look great. All right. Like, there's just a lot of question marks in goal all around the NHL. It's an interesting position. We always say goalies are voodoo, and this year they seem to be more voodoo than ever, man.
Yeah, I agree with that. The only, top guy who's doing his thing is Connor Hellebuyck out in Winnipeg. Perfect 5-0 with a 948 save percentage.
Igor Shesterkin has been unbelievable. What
he's
are you
been
talking
good
about?
too. Yeah, he's been good too in the Eastern Conference for sure. So he's playing for that next contract too, right? So
dude, he's picking up 100 G's every save he makes, it feels like.
Yeah, no doubt. And we all know goaltending, special teams, the 2 most important parts of hockey when you're looking to build a consistent winning habit. So the Frozen Frenzy, outside of our 2 teams, which game caught your attention that you were flipping back to the most?
The Rangers, I mean, they're just such a wagon, man. I know they weren't playing a great team. Like, the Montreal Canadiens are a dumpster fire. They're not a good team. They're not taking that step that I think some people predicted. But the Rangers are. And I don't know why you finally, at the beginning of the year, were like, I'm out. I'm not going to go with the Rangers anymore.
I've been hurt twice.
This is the year to do it, though. 3rd time's the charm, man. They're freaking good. Like, you got the bread man. I think he's 2nd in points, 2nd in goals so far on the season.
Behind Kucherov, right? For both?
No, Cale Makar actually leads the league in points. Yeah, he did a big night last night.
Unreal.
Cale Makar. But
in goals, it's Kucherov.
Yeah, in goals, it's Kucherov.
Yeah, 7 in 6 games.
Yeah. He's got 6 goals and 7 for the bread man. Shesterkin's playing unbelievable. You got Zibanejad playing well.
6 and 6 for Panarin.
Yeah. It's really been the Rangers are a wagon, dude. That's a good team. That is a well-built team. They're physical, they're tough, they can score, they can defend, and they've got what I would say is right now the number 1 goalie in the world in Igor Shesterkin. 1A, 1B. I guess you could flip a coin with him and Hellebuyck. But frig, man, they just imposed their will on the Montreal Canadiens last night. That's a good hockey team over there in New York.
I could be wrong on this, but to me, and I can confirm this, they don't have a single player in the minuses, in plus minus. Not a single player on their team is a minus player so far this season. They had 2 big wins over Detroit earlier on this season, and
they're plus 19.
They're rolling.
They're plus 19. Rolling. They've only allowed 12 goals this year through 6 games.
That's
crazy.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Carolina's at 13, but have played 1 less game. Washington and the New York Islanders at 15 each. They're 3rd in the Eastern Conference. But that goal differential is where it really gets wacky. They're a plus 19. The next best team in goal differential is the Tampa Bay Lightning at plus 6.
In the East. Yeah.
In the East.
The Jets are over there. But yeah, in the East. I mean, they're away 5-0-1. I mean, it's a really good hockey team, and I got to watch them the other night in Toronto. So like I literally got to watch them play, and I got a pretty good viewpoint of how that team can operate. It's a good team, super well built, well balanced, score, defend, goaltending, checks all the boxes.
And sometimes you worry about those games where you get off to an enormous lead, and they scored 54 seconds into that game. You mentioned
Mhm.
Zibanejad with a great goal there. And then when you blink, it's 3-0, 6 minutes and 40 seconds into this game. A road game, too. Talk about silencing what's an electric barn always at the Bell
Yeah.
Center. They certainly did that last night. Never looked back. Got the 7-2 win. We don't have to get into the shenanigans with the Jacob Trouba hit. No penalty called. We just hope that Justin Barron is all right. He's not practicing today. Upper body injury. Didn't look good, but the screenshot right before the hit, that elbow is tucked right in, and you can't always say that with Jacob Trouba. I think it was an unfortunate lean over from Justin Barron, and next thing you know, he is out. So hopefully
We're
he's
not
all
going
right.
to talk about the hit, but I'm going to sit here and defend the hit for the next 30 seconds.
No more on that. If people have disagreements, they can let us know in the comments. Obviously, our thoughts are with the injured player on that one with Justin Barron. But yeah, I think you're looking at the Eastern Conference starting to kind of at least have the bottom end figured out, because the Philadelphia Flyers can't win a hockey game. They're 1-4-1 on the season through 6 games. And then the Montreal Canadiens 2-4-1. Those guys are kind of a little bit further back now of the pack. They're also the 2 teams in double-digit minuses in
Yeah.
goal differential early on. Everybody else, it's obviously very early in the season. Do you have any overreactions that you want to get to in the next segment?
I do.
Okay.
Like, I think that there's a couple of overreactions we got going on, and some other teams where I think there's some overachieving happening as well. So we can get to
Okay.
that in just a little bit.
Let's do that. And then we'll wrap up the show talking about Paul Maurice and his contract extension with the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. That's coming up next. You're listening to Locked On NHL, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals so you can get great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks curates and makes it easier to save more on sports, comedy, concerts, theater, whichever event you're looking to get some tickets to. They've got great seat views. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you even buy your tickets. And they've got the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Here's how you play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season with Prize Picks. When I use Prize Picks, yeah, I'm a bit of a homer. I like picking players on my teams, but I also love the fact that it can get you into the action on any game. You can just click over and be like, oh, I got this guy. We need more of shots on goal, of goals, of assists. Just pick your categories and join over 10 million users signing up today. Prize Picks invented the flex play as well, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even have to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts. So go to Prize Picks and get started right now. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today. Download Prize Picks and use code Locked On NHL. Welcome back, Locked On NHL, your team every day. Thank you for making us your first listen on this Wednesday, October 23rd. For more, you can go check out Locked On Maple Leafs with my co-host Mike DiStefano. You can find us at Locked On Ottawa Senators, and you can find all the local experts on the biggest stories. Just type in Locked On, insert team name here, wherever you get your podcasts. We are also free and available on YouTube. So the season is just 2 weeks in, but teams are already starting to create the identity of which we are going to expect them to play the rest of the season. Mikey, you said you got a couple overreactions. What's at the top of that list?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think there's a lot of people who are starting to write off Andrei Vasilevsky after the last couple of games. I think it's a little too soon to write him off. I think that's an overreaction to say that he's no longer should be in the conversation of a top five goaltender, which is, I've heard a lot of that, right? Vasilevsky no longer a top five goalie, and that the Lightning are in serious trouble if they can't get him rolling. I think that's bogus. I still believe that Vasilevsky is a terrific goaltender. He'll figure it out and give this team a chance. It's still very much a playoff team. And I think that, moving like the way that Kucherov is playing right now, he's at an elite level. I still believe that this Lightning squad is a good team. I think that people are overreacting, saying that, they're over the hill and their best days are behind them. I think there's still a very, very competitive hockey team here.
And what do you think about the Boston Bruins? Because my hot take is that it's not even a hot take, it's fact. Their fourth line has been their best line so far this season. That is good for the fourth line, but is it good for the hockey team?
Cole Koepke, my guy.
Mark Kastelik. He beat the wheels off of Luke Shen last night.
I saw that. I did see that. No, that's not good for a hockey team. The Maple Leafs were that way through the first couple of games, and it wasn't great before the big boys got going. And I would imagine that we'll see Marchand and Pasternak pick it up, but I'm a little worried about the Bruins. I mean, every year we come in saying they're a little older. Is this the year they fall off? Is this the year it happens? This might be the year that it happens, Ross. And I don't think that is too early of an overreaction. This might be it. You look at the underlying numbers, and again, we're only through a handful of games where they got 7 games played, but they've gotten expected goals of 44%. They're ranked 29th in the NHL. So the process has not been there. They're aging out. They're getting older. And the players that they brought in, I don't think are as good as maybe Boston thought they were or figured they'd be. Like, they paid a ridiculous amount of money for Nikita Zadorov, who's a third pair defenseman. That's what Nikita Zadorov is. He's a big dude, but they're playing this guy as if he's like a top 4 monster.
Well, they're playing him with McAvoy. Him and McAvoy are second most in minutes at 5-on-5 behind the pair of Hampus Lindholm and Brandon Carlo.
How's their numbers looking?
2 goals for, 1 against when they're on the ice at 5-on-5. Their expected goals together is, in one moment, please, Zadorov and McAvoy, 52.2% expected goals. When you have McAvoy on a pair, that should probably be a little higher. I mean, their real numbers tell the story as well, being 3-3-1 through 7 games.
Exactly. And I just think that it's a team that's just not as good as they once were. And I mean, Swayman, it's been a slow start, I guess. He's been fine. I wouldn't say that they've been bad, but like last night, they lost to the Nashville Predators. That team hasn't won a game all year. And all of a sudden, they're getting blanked by Nashville. So that's a team that has caught my eye early on for early season struggles, is the Boston Bruins. And I'll be curious to see if this continues or if it's just a little slow out of the gate.
I also find it interesting because it feels like for years, right, it was Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak as a line. And coach Jim Montgomery has broken up Pasternak and Marchand. Obviously, Bergeron's retired, but when you look at it, those two haven't even played 10 minutes together at 5-on-5. Pasternak's played exclusively, really, with Elias Lindholm and Pavel Zacha, and they've got Marchand with Charlie Coyle and Trent Frederick. And that line in particular has got an expected goals of 16%. So I don't know if it's time to blow it up so far already. We saw a blow up on the bench between Montgomery and Brad Marchand, captain and coach. You can probably take that a couple different ways. I think with the culture that they have in Boston, it's nothing to read too far into. But if this continues through November and into the Christmas time, I think this is going to be a situation to monitor where maybe this is the year where the Bruins take a step back. I'm not saying that it's a guarantee. They've
Right.
obviously had so
Long
much
season to
success.
go.
They've had so much success, it's hard to count them out. But when you look at that Atlantic division, every point is going to mean so much. Right now, from 1 to 6 in the division, it's separated by 2 points. And the team that's first has played 2 more games than a handful of others. So that, to me, we said it before the season, that's going to be the most competitive division in hockey.
Oh, 100%. And there's been a discourse around, okay, which of the Buffaloes, the Ottawas, the Detroits are going to take that next step, right? Which one of those 3 teams are finally going to get themselves over the hump and into the playoffs? Well, in order for that to happen, one of the teams are going to have to fall out, right? It could be the Boston Bruins. Ultimately, it could end up being Boston. This could be the year that they fall out of it. And one of, Ottawa's, like, this is the Ottawa. I mean, you watch them on a daily basis. Their biggest kryptonite has been October and November. Well, so far, so good. 4-2. They've got a winning record. They're currently in a playoff spot.
Hey, Mikey, those 2 teams ahead of Ottawa, those are 2 of the 4 wins that the Sens have.
There you go. So a couple impressive wins. And they got a nice little win last night against the Utah Hockey Club, who's been playing pretty well.
We've actually claimed it because we beat them on the road. It's now the Ottawa Hockey Club.
The Ottawa Hockey Club. All right.
We're the hockey. Hey, see me? We're the hockey club now.
Okay. All right. All right. Moving on from that ludicrous statement. Yeah, it's tough. Like, and Boston got off to such a tough start, or Buffalo got off to such a tough start, but they've won a couple in a row here. They're looking a lot
Big
better
wins.
the last few games.
Beating Dallas last night was huge.
Yeah, and Tage Thompson's got 5 goals on the year. If they can get Tage Thompson to bounce back into a 40-goal scorer, that team has a chance to make a run at the playoffs this year, right? You get Tage Thompson cooking, Alex Tuck, if he can stay healthy, get cooking. You get Darlene making those big improvements. You get Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen end up becoming a number 1 goaltender this year. There's a lot to like in Buffalo, and they'll be another one of those teams that's going to give Boston a run for their money when it comes to keeping and holding, down a playoff spot.
Meanwhile, so I mentioned that only 2 points separates 1 from 6 in the Atlantic division. 5 points separates 1 from 6 and 7 in the Metropolitan division. Give me one take, your biggest takeaway from the first couple of weeks in the Metro, aside from, of course, the Rangers being a wagon.
That's my take. The Rangers are a wagon.
Okay, I'll take one then. I'm shocked that Pittsburgh is still in the mix based on how bad their goaltending's been. For them to even still be 3-4-1, I don't think it's impressive by any stretch, but they're right in the mix. And I figured with how bad that was, they're still finding ways to get points.
Yeah, I mean, Sidney Crosby, right? You still got Sid. You still got
Malkin. Malkin looks unbelievable.
I mean, the thing is, that's the problem with Pittsburgh is they've got enough players to make you believe that they can be competitive. And then for whatever reason, last year, they weren't able to get a cooking on the power play, and that really screwed them. But they went right down to the wire. I think they had an opportunity all the way up until the final week to make the playoffs, and ultimately just weren't able to close out. The Capitals closed out, and they did it. But look, that's a team when you got Malkin, you got Sid, you got Letang, Carlson, Brian Rust has been really, really good to start the year too. They've got enough pieces that can score. But can they keep the puck out of the net? So far, that has been a big problem, but we'll see.
Sidney Crosby, 0 5-on-5 goals. His only goal this season is an overtime winner against the Buffalo Sabres, knee down, and it was a big goal for him, obviously. Are we concerned about Michael Bunting? 1 assist through 7 games, no goals. I mean, they're going to need more from him.
Did he get healthy? I thought I saw that he got healthy. Maybe not actually. If he's, but yeah.
Well, no, he played 7. Yeah, at 8.
Yeah, so he took a healthy in last night. I'm pretty sure. I'd be concerned about that. Yeah, I certainly would be because he's making what, over $4 million. He's making 4.5. I want to say. I'd be concerned if I'm a Pittsburgh fan. You expected him to come in and provide a little bit of offense. I think he was expected to be on one of the power play units, and all of a sudden, early in the season, he's nowhere to be found. Yeah, for a team that's up against the cap, you can't have a dude making $4.5 million putting up 1 point through 6 games. Just can't be the case. So yeah, super concerned.
Just one game in the National Hockey League tonight, and it's a rematch from a game last night. The Washington Capitals are taking on the Philadelphia Flyers. The Capitals got a 4-1 win in their matchup yesterday, dominated on the shot clock. Philly with only 18 shots on goal in that game. They just do not have the offensive weapons beyond Matvei Michkov to be able to really string a few goals together here. That's going to be something I'm watching for over the course of the next little while is the Washington Capitals. They obviously had a big offseason, a lot of changes. So sometimes that takes a little while, but they're still finding ways to win a few games, and they're right in the mix as well. They're sitting at 4-1 on the season. So an impressive start in a light start too, with only 5 games played. That's among the lowest in the National Hockey League. So that's the game we'll be watching tonight. For more on
without Ovi heating up, like Ovi's got, I think, 1 goal. That's it so far. So they're getting it done without having to rely on him scoring goals too, which, bodes well for the team's future success, you would think.
Yeah, Jacob Chikrin looks great there. He's got 4 points in 5 games to start his time with the Washington Capitals. Dylan Strome with 8 points in 5 games. He leads that team. And Tom Wilson, who's been in the news as a potential member of the Four Nations Team Canada, he's got 5 goals in 5 games to start the season. Tonight's game gets underway from Washington at 7:30 Eastern. For more on that, go check out Locked On Washington Capitals and Locked On Philadelphia Flyers. On the other side, we've got Paul Maurice signing a contract extension, and the Florida Panthers are cruising to start the season. You're listening to Locked On NHL, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Over at FanDuel, we make sure that you are in on the action, whether you're just watching at home or if you're on the FanDuel site, because now you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page that you make your bets. Mikey, great little fun thing that they're doing on FanDuel here up in Canada. You can actually bet on when the first snowfall will happen in Toronto, Ontario. So you can really get in on all the action over at FanDuel. And because you're a listener of Locked On NHL, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So go check them out at FanDuel.com. Go check them out, FanDuel.com. Get in on the action. It's the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Welcome back, Locked On NHL, your team every day. I'm Maurice Levitan. You can find me over at Locked On Ottawa Senators alongside Mike DiStefano from Locked On Maple Leafs. And go check out the Locked On Fantasy Hockey boys to get all the latest of who to pick up, who to drop, who's hot, who's not. They've got you all set on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast. Paul Maurice, a guy who I've loved listening to in the media for years. He always brings a good quote. He is among the all-time game coach leaders in the National Hockey League. It was awesome to see him get that Stanley Cup last spring. He's actually second behind Scotty Bowman on the all-time games coach list. He's got 1,856 games, still a ways to go, almost 300 more before tying the great Scotty Bowman. What are your thoughts on the fit for Paul Maurice in Florida? Of course, it works. It fits like a glove. It's kind of a no-brainer that he's going to get that contract extension. So I guess my question will be the timing. How about the timing of it?
What's wrong with the timing? I guess why didn't they get it done over the offseason?
I had to throw it as a question somehow.
Yeah, clown question, bro. Clown question. Look, I mean,
that was side note. That's when they asked Harper if he was going to have a drink because he was 19 years old and he was in Toronto.
Yeah.
Amazing. That is a clown question. Paul Maurice should call me out for that question too. He's got no problem doing that.
Well, if you asked him that, and you said, "Hey, how do you think the fit's going to be with you in Florida?" Well, we won a Stanley Cup last year, so I'd say we fit pretty good as a unit. Hey, good for Florida getting it done, right? Bringing the coach back, keeping him in the mix for a couple more years. And I think like what he's done at the beginning of the year too is super impressive. I mean, no Matt Tkachuk and no Alex Barkov, and they just continue to roll. Like it's funny, about a week or so ago, I sent a note over to our boy Frankie Corrado. I saw the matchup. I think it was they were going into Vancouver, and I sent him what the lineup card looked like for the Florida Panthers, and I'm like, man, this does not look like a good team. Like, I don't even think this would be a playoff team with the lineup that they were posting. Now, it was without Barkov and without Kachuk. Obviously, you take off your top two players on most teams, it's not going to look great. But they just continue to win. They continue to, burrow through and continue to score goals. Sam Reinhart's really picked up where he left off, scoring a bunch of goals. I think he's got 5 or 6 to start the year, 5
12
goals.
points.
Yeah, like he's been unbelievable. And I mean, it's just a team that continues to buy in, next man up mentality. And that comes down to the coach. Like the coach just has that team moving and shaking in the right direction. And, good for him to get another extension, lock him down in South Beach long term. I think it's a obvious smart move on both parties.
I'm curious to see how Florida bounces back, though, because they got beaten badly last night to the Minnesota Wild. 5-1 was the final score in that game. I know they've had not the easiest of schedules to start the season, but I think you're looking at a situation now where they're coming off back-to-back overtime games. They only beat the Columbus Blue Jackets by 1 goal as well.
That's a good team. That's a really good team out in Columbus.
A lot of people are saying it, and there's going to be a great game tomorrow night.
Yeah,
Florida is taking on.
You should put some respect on Columbus, by the way. They're actually playing with some heart to start the year.
Scrappy?
Yeah, they've been playing with some heart. But yes, losing to them is not great.
No, not ideal. You know who they've got tomorrow? The Florida Panthers?
Who they got?
At MSG.
That's a tough game for them. The boys, the Rangers, yeah, they'll be sniffing blood. Was that the conference final?
It was.
Yeah, so a little rematch of the conference final. The Rangers will be smelling some blood there for sure.
Minus 150, the Rangers right now over at FanDuel. You can get the Panthers at plus 125. So they're first in the division. The Florida Panthers are. No surprise there. They've started with a 4-3-1 record, but again, they've played 2 more games than both Tampa and Ottawa and only sit 1 point up on them. So this is a stretch where they've got Matty Tkachuk back and Sasha Barkov as well, I believe, is back. If not, he's right on the cusp. I know Armando Velez was talking about him being imminent to return. He, as I pull up the game log right here, Sasha Barkov did not play, but is inching closer to a return. So maybe
they head out to Finland, don't they, pretty soon?
Yes. When is that game?
I think that's coming up, I believe. I
got you. November 1st and 2nd. You're right.
Yeah. So they're praying. The NHL is praying, and I'm sure Barkov that he will be good to go for that game. He's one of them. He's gonna be the main attraction once they get over there.
Him and Miro Heiskanen. It's gonna be Dallas against Florida in that game. But hey, look, another Finn stepped up in his absence. Anton Lundell is gonna be a star in this league for a long time.
Good player. And they got him locked up. They got him locked up too.
Yeah, they do. So we're not worried at all about the Florida Panthers. Why would you be?
No.
They're just picking up right back where they left off and doing it without a couple of their key players. So more on that. Go check out Locked On Florida Panthers. Mikey, any final thoughts on today's show?
Yeah. Is this not the cutest hockey card you've seen in a long time, pal?
Charlie Coyle.
With his puppers. Charlie Coyle with his puppers. I saw it the other day, and I was like, I think this is a great looking card. I even sleeved it up. That's all. That's it. Just want to show the world a cute little card with a puppy on it. That's all.
Very good boy. Very good boy. Hey, Claire Hanna, actually, friend of the show on Locked On Sens with TSN. She's doing a segment in intermissions at Sens games now where she goes on a dog walk with a player with one of their pups. Like, what a life, eh? They had Drake Batherson and his French bulldog Bobby out on a walk last night. So that's great content right there.
That's hilarious. Good for Claire. She's a beauty.
Yeah, she's the best. So that's awesome. Hope you enjoyed today's show. For more, make sure you stay tuned on Locked On NHL. Tomorrow, we've got Power Rankings Thursday, and it's going to be interesting to see just how big the swings are at the start of the season where teams are jockeying for positioning in the standings. Make your second listen Locked On Maple Leafs, Locked On Senators. All of our local experts got you covered on the biggest stories across the Locked On Podcast Network. For today, we say goodbye. For Mike DiStefano, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Eastern Conference Roundup. We'll talk to you next Wednesday on Locked On NHL, your team every day.